Please join me in Gasho. The people who are trying to obstruct the Nembutsu are the manor lords, bailiffs, and landowners in the local areas. Practitioners of the Nembutsu should act with compassion for those who commit such obstruction. Feel pity for them, and earnestly say the Nembutsu, thereby helping those who seek to hinder them. Namadabats. 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 This passage is from Letter 4 in the Collection of Letters section of the Collected Works of Shinran, and is found on pages 563 and 564. Good morning, everyone. I want to begin today's talk with a small confession. Some of you may know that I sing with the Portland Choir and Orchestra. Our most recent concert was this past May and was in celebration of the 250th anniversary of the United States. When I learned of the theme of the concert, I was ambivalent about it. Deeply ambivalent. I am not by nature a lover of patriotic music. And this year, given the state of things in our country and in the world, I was not sure that I had the heart for a patriotic celebration. Leading up to the first rehearsal, I expressed my ambivalence occasionally at home. Maho would say I complained incessantly about it. Still, I showed up at the first rehearsal with my ambivalence firmly in hand. When the music was handed out, I was pleasantly surprised to find that the only overtly patriotic song was America the Beautiful. Whew, what a relief. But that feeling of relief got me thinking. If I was so braced for something I didn't like, what was I actually braced against? That question is what I want to explore here today. There is a pattern of thinking that goes like this. Whatever one side gains, the other side loses. Every contest has a winner and a loser, and the only way I can succeed is by ensuring your defeat. Economists call it zero-sum thinking. Chess is a zero-sum game. Boxing is a zero-sum game. A narrow election, and we know that elections have consequences, is a zero-sum game. But here is what I want us to consider this morning. Most of life is not a zero-sum game. And when we treat it as though it is, we cause tremendous suffering to others and to ourselves. Think about how much of our patriotic music works. It draws a circle around us. This land, this flag, this people. And the emotional power of the song lives inside that circle. Sometimes there is an explicit enemy. Often there isn't. But the glory is ours. The providence is ours. Righteousness marches with our armies. The music doesn't need to name a loser. It simply assumes one. And that assumption that my nation's greatness is meaningful precisely because it stands above others is zero-sum thinking set to melody. It is one of the most effective delivery systems for that particular poison ever produced because it makes the poison feel noble. It makes grasping feel like gratitude. It makes the drawing of the circle feel like love. That is what I worried I would not be able to stomach this year. Not the love of home. That is real and I share it. But the way that patriotic music often reaches for transcendence while assuming that transcendence is ours alone. When we look at our neighbors and think, if they have more, I have less. That is zero-sum thinking. When we look at another community and feel that their flourishing somehow threatens ours, that is zero-sum thinking. When we see another nation's people loving their country and feel that this love is somehow in competition with our own, that is zero-sum thinking. In the days leading up to the first rehearsal, trying to come to terms with my own tangled feelings, I found myself thinking about a hymn I had heard at a Unitarian service. The hymn is "This Is My Song," written in 1934 by Lloyd Stone and set to the stirring melody of Jean Sibelius's epic tone poem, Finlandia, a melody the Finnish people had already claimed as their own cry for freedom and home. Stone took that melody and wrote words that do something I find remarkable. "This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and mine. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on cloverleaf and pine. But other lands have sunlight too and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, thou God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams, as true and high as mine." That is the line that touches me every time, because it would have been so easy, so very human, to stop at "This is my song," to plant the flag, to draw the circle around us and leave it there. But Stone refuses. In the very same breath that he claims his home, he opens his hands and says, "Yours too. Your dreams are as true as mine. Your skies are as blue. Your holy things are holy." And that is precisely what zero-sum thinking cannot do. I can love my home and honor yours. My song of peace does not require your silence. Your blue skies do not dim mine. This is not zero-sum. Rather, it is something the Dharma recognizes. In Jodo Shinshu, we speak often of the three poisons. You all know that: greed, anger, and ignorance. Shinran Shonin, with his characteristic radical honesty, did not examine these poisons as problems other people had. He wrote about his own greed, his own anger, his own deep, stubborn ignorance, the hardwired tendencies of a bombu, an ordinary foolish being, which is what he understood himself to be, and what he understood, without condemnation, without shame, and without exception, all of us to be. Zero-sum thinking, I suggest, is all three poisons working together. It begins with ignorance, a fundamental misperception of how things actually are. We look at the world and see it as a collection of separate competing selves. I am here, you are there. What you take is taken from me. This is a delusion, not a moral failing so much as a deep, inherited confusion about the nature of reality. The Dharma teaches us that this is not how things actually are. The teaching of dependent origination, interbeing, tells us that nothing exists in isolation. Everything arises in relationship. Your well-being and mine are not opposite ends of a seesaw. They are threads woven into the same cloth. Now, from ignorance, comes greed. The grasping that follows from the illusion of scarcity. If I believe the pie is only so big, I will clutch my slice. I will guard it. I will resent your hunger. In my confusion, your loss begins to look like my security. And from greed comes anger, because zero-sum thinking is exhausting and frightening. When you believe that every gain for someone else is a threat to you, the world becomes a place full of enemies. And fear, when it has nowhere honest to go, becomes rage. This is the toxicity of zero-sum thinking. Not just social division, not just political conflict, but a spiritual corrosion. It hollows us out. It makes us smaller than we are. It makes us sing only one small song when we're made for something so much larger. So, what do we do about zero-sum thinking? Everything I have said so far about zero-sum thinking, the patriotic music, the three poisons, the way fear becomes rage, I have not been describing other people. I have been describing myself. I have sat in traffic and felt that flicker. I have heard the news and felt, in some corner of my heart, glee and satisfaction when someone I disagree with stumbles. I have drawn circles. I draw them still. When I ask, what do we do about zero-sum thinking? I am not asking how I can manage the difficult people I encounter in my life. I am asking how I can live faithfully inside my own Bombu nature, knowing I will grasp, knowing I will draw the circle too small, while still trying to act with integrity towards others who are doing the same thing. Because we are all doing exactly the same thing. The person whose zero-sum certainty exhausts me, they are also afraid. Their circle is also drawn too small. And they are no more able to simply decide to stop grasping than I am. That is what it means to be Bombu. It is not a character flaw unique to people we disagree with. It is the shared condition of everyone in this Hondo and everyone outside it. Now, this does not mean we do nothing. The Dharma does not ask passivity of us, and neither does basic human dignity. But it changes the spirit in which we act. We set limits without contempt. There's a difference between saying, I cannot allow this behavior, and saying, you are my enemy and I want you to lose. The first comes from care for ourselves, for others who might be harmed, even for the person we are limiting, because being bogged down in zero-sum thinking is not good for anyone. The second is us joining the game on the other side. The tradition asks us to do the first and to notice when we are slipping towards the second. We witness without abandoning. Zero-sum thinking isolates people. It shrinks the circle of trust until almost no one is left inside. When we refuse to write someone off entirely, we are doing something the vow does, refusing to let their current behavior be the last word on who they are. This is not always safe or possible, but when and where we can, the refusal to abandon is itself a witness to the vow's own refusal to abandon us. We take care not to become what we oppose. This is the hardest one and the one I most need to hear myself. There is a seduction in opposing zero-sum thinkers. It is so easy to believe our cause is righteous enough that the normal rules don't apply, that the other side has it coming, that demonizing them isn't really demonizing, it's just being accurate, that our circle is entitled to win at their circle's expense. When that happens, we have not defeated zero-sum thinking. We have simply changed which side is practicing it. As long as we know ourselves to be Bombu, we cannot entirely lose sight of the Bombu in the person across from us. That shared foolishness is the thread of connection that zero-sum thinking cannot cut. Amida's vow does not work the zero-sum way. Amida Buddha's primal vow, the very heart of Jodo Shinshu teaching, is profoundly non-zero-sum promise. The vow does not say, I will save some of you, the worthy ones, if there is enough merits to go around. It does not say, I will extend compassion to the people who deserve it more than others. The vow says, with breathtaking, almost impossible generosity, that Amida will not rest until all beings are brought to liberation. All beings without exception. Not just the most devout, not just the people who got here first or worked the hardest, or are the fortunate ones born in the right nation, into the right family, or who hold the right opinions about the right things. Not just those who wear the right color hat. All beings. For Shinran, this was not abstract. He counted himself among the least deserving compassion. And yet, the vow reached him. The Nembutsuge, the call of Amida Buddha, arose in him, and he understood that this was not something he had earned. It was a gift, a completely free, unconditional gift. And here is the beautiful non-zero-sum logic of that gift. Your receiving it takes nothing away from me. My hearing the Nembutsuge does not diminish what is available to you. Amida's compassion is endless. It does not shrink when it is shared. The more people who awaken to it, the more the light spreads. There is enough. There is more than enough. Which is, I think, exactly what Lloyd Stone was reaching for when he wrote, "O hear my song, thou God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine." Let me repeat that line in our own words. "O hear my song, Namo Amida Butsu, a song of peace for their land and for mine." Not their land or mine, their land and mine. The compassion that embraces them is the same compassion that embraces me. We are not competing for it. So here we are, the morning after the 4th of July. Yesterday, across the U.S., there were parades and barbecues and fireworks, and I am sure arguments in living rooms, on porches, at picnic tables, across the distances that have opened up between people who used to feel closer. People were celebrating what America means to them, and people were grieving what it has not yet become. And many people, perhaps most of us, were holding both of those feelings at the same time. It isn't my place to tell you how to feel about your country or your politics or your neighbors across town or over the fence. That is not this Dharma talk. But I do want to ask us to notice when zero-sum thinking moves in us. To notice when we feel that our flourishing requires someone else's diminishment. To notice when our love of home curdles into contempt for other homes. There is a third verse often added to This Is My Song, which was written by Georgia Harkness about 6 years after the song was originally published. This verse asks something of us. May truth and freedom come to every nation. May peace abound where strife has raged so long, that each may seek to love and build together a world united, righting every wrong. A world united in its love for freedom, proclaiming peace together in one song. This isn't easy to sing, especially not now. Especially not when strife feels so very close and peace so very far. But I think right now is precisely when it needs to be sung. Not as a denial of how hard things are, but as an act of aspiration. As what our tradition calls ongayashi, gratitude in action. The natural overflow of a heart that knows it has received something it did not earn and wants, in its imperfect way, to pass it on. All of this, the noticing, the limit setting, the refusal to abandon, the vigilance against becoming what I oppose, rests on one thing. Not on my own resolve, which I know I will fail at. Not on my own compassion, which is always incomplete. It rests on entrusting myself to the vow and letting the Nembutsu arise from that place of honest, ungrasping openness. When we do, we find we don't need someone else to lose for us to be embraced. There is enough to go around. More than enough. The gift wants to move outward and become, as the hymn says, a song of peace, not just for our land, but for every land. I want to leave you this morning where this reflection began, with the lines I keep returning to, offered here in words meaningful to us as Shin Buddhists. This is my song, Namo Amida Butsu, a song of peace for lands afar and mind. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. I do love my home. I hold my hopes and my grief about this country in the same hands. And the Dharma will not let me stop there. Other hearts are beating with hopes just as true and grief just as real. The vow does not stop at my border. The Nembutsu does not belong only to one nation, to one tribe, to one person. What This Is My Song does, in its simple way, is keep drawing the circle wider and wider until there is, at least in the aspiration of the song, a patriotism where no one is left outside. And that is what the vow does. That is what the Nembutsu points to. Not a world where one voice rises at the expense of another. Not a world where my light requires your darkness. But a world where all voices, even the struggling ones, even the imperfect ones, even the ones still singing very different songs, are held within something large enough to include us all. Please join me in Gasho. The people who are trying to obstruct the Nembutsu are the manor lords, bailiffs, and landowners in the local areas. Practitioners of the Nembutsu should act with compassion for those who commit such obstruction. Feel pity for them and earnestly say the Nembutsu, thereby helping those who seek to hinder them. Namami Davits. Naman Davits. Naman Davits. Naman Davits.